Hello, everybody. My name is Robbie Williams. I'm a paramedic and I love to help people learn. So, tonight we thought we would highlight a little bit of some things that will be coming up hopefully in the near future, and that is some heat related illnesses. So, we want you to be able to know what to look for and things that you could potentially do to help somebody that is been overheated due to the sun, due to the environment, just too hot in general. First thing that we want to think about when we're talking about patients that may have gotten a little bit too much heat is we got to remember that whole heat index thing. We learn it back in elementary school, middle school maybe, but then sometimes it kind of slips our mind. So remember, as the temperatures increase and the relative humidity increases, that means it's actually hotter than what it really is. So just because it says that it's 88 degrees outside, but if we have that humidity of 90%, then you're actually looking at somewhere right around a temperature of 113 degrees. Some of us, that may not be too bad. Others of us, that might be a little toasty. So we want to keep this in mind, especially when we start looking at pediatrics, kids, or geriatrics, the older population. We want to make sure that we are keeping an eye on this whole heat index so that we don't get them into trouble this summer coming up. Our body has this amazing way of kind of telling us that we may have been in the sun a little bit too long, or even in the heat a little bit too long. We may start to come off with some heat rash, which is kind of little red clusters, maybe like little blister-looking things, maybe like pimples that's on the skin. That's our first warning sign that we probably ought to get in and cool off and get in that air conditioning just to make sure that we can let our body relax for a minute. If we do get that heat rash, we want to stay cool. We want to keep it dry. We want to definitely keep that rash dry. Some people even recommend that you could potentially possibly use things like little baby powder to soothe that rash a little bit so it's not hurting quite as bad. Parents kind of sometimes thinks about these heat rashes when it comes to little ones still in diapers and Pampers and maybe even pull-ups. So sometimes those little legs get a little red and kind of blistery looking, and just a little too much heat. May need to let some air get down to that general area, and it'll probably go away with no big deal. The other thing that we want to look at, I know, everybody loves the beach. Everybody loves laying out. Sunscreen is told over and over and over to make sure we're putting sunscreen on, but people still out working. You go out on the construction sites, they may not think about it to throw on some sunscreen. Maybe you are one of those that need that tan in a hurry and you'll put sunscreen on after you get a little bit of a tan. Either way we go, sunburns is causing damage to that skin. So it's going to be red and it's going to be painful. The skin is definitely going to be warm. In some spots, we can even start to get some blisters on the skin. Remember, when we do get those blisters, though, the one thing that we're not going to do is we're definitely not going to break those blisters. We want to make sure that we keep those intact and let them do what they're going to do and pop on their own if they're going to pop. Though, trying to help somebody that you see has been laying out too long, been out in the heat too long, been out in the sun too long. Maybe you go over to visit your parents and Papa is out in the yard mowing and he's just been out there a little too long and that sun and that heat has gotten to him. That skin's starting to get really red. He's starting to get blisters. We need to get them into someplace cool. They need to try to stay out of the heat until that sunburn actually somewhat heals. You can try placing a little cool, not cold, and definitely not hot cloth on them to kind of cool that sunburned area off a little bit, or maybe even taking a cool type shower. Now, one thing we want to remember is that skin has basically three functions. That skin is there to not to make this too difficult, keep crap in, keep crap out, and it helps regulate our body's temperature. So with that being said, if we've done some damage to our temperature regulation and we throw some cold water on there, you're going to kind of cause them to shiver and shake and their body trying to build up heat itself, which we don't want to do. So we want to make sure that we keep them cool, just not cold. If we jump in that cool shower, we let it run on us. Sometimes the problem is that we jump right out as soon as the burning stopped. Well, that's kind of like you guys taking a bucket of water and throwing it on the fire out in the backyard. You'll put part of that out, but you're not going to put everything deep down into those ashes completely out with just that one bucket of water. Kind of somewhat similar to when we get that sunburn. We can put the surface paint out, but it's still sitting there burning a little bit. Hence the reason why when we use these commercial made products to ease the paint up and to kind of smooth things over, you got to use it every 4 to 6 hours as the bottle recommends typically. Only because it's going to come right back. It's not actually getting down in there. But once we get that burning sensation stopped, completely stopped, we get all those ashes, all those coals put out that's underneath there, then we can consider using some moisturizing lotion kind of to help with that dry skin that's going to come where we've burnt those layers. And again, we want to remember, do not break the blisters. After we've been out in the sun, one of the other things that may start to occur is you're going to start sweating really kind of intensely during your activities. Then you may start to have some muscle pains and spasms. That is our body's also way of telling us that we probably need to cool off and we need to slow down a little bit. So the one thing that we want to do is that we definitely want to stop the activity and move to a cool place, preferably air conditioning. However, if we're outside, we can't get to air conditioning, then we're going to find a shade tree, a shaded area someplace where there's a nice breeze blowing to try to help us out to cool our body down. We can try doing a little bit of sipping and drinking of water or maybe some kind of sports drink. Remember though to look at your sports drinks because some of them still have a pretty good high sugar content, which is not what you really want at this point because that's just going to kind of make you a little more thirsty. So if we do have a higher sugar level content in our sports drink, maybe we consider splitting it 50-50, 50% water and 50% sports drink and let that help the body a little bit. We break down those electrolytes, spread them out a little bit, and it will help you go. We definitely want to wait for those cramps to go away before we go back out and perform our activities, and we definitely would like for that body temperature to cool down some. Now, some of the things we might want to consider is the fact that if we have those cramps that's lasting longer than an hour, we probably ought to contact our physician, urgent care, something like that, and have them evaluated. If you're a person that is in or on a low sodium type diet, definitely want to talk to your medical professional. We really should before we start any exercising anyway, but definitely want to make sure if we're on some kind of low sodium salt type diet that we talk to our physicians. And if we're keeping those cramps and those cramps are coming and we have heart problems, same thing. We need to definitely make sure that we talk to our physician because we want to remember that our heart works off of a sodium pump. So if we're kind of depleting that and we're cramping up, then our doctor definitely needs to know about it. So we're going to definitely seek medical attention. Next, after the cramps, we get to exhaustion. You're sweating like crazy. You're cold, you're pale, you're clammy. Your heart rate's probably getting faster, but your pulse may actually be weaker. Some of you guys like checking your pulses when you're out exercising. If we know it's getting fast, but your pulse is kind of weak, then we probably need to start considering how much heat we're actually in and taking in. Might be nauseous, might feel sick to your stomach, might actually be sick to your stomach, and you might vomit. We're definitely looking for those cramps. Maybe we're getting tired or weak, dizzy, headaches are kicking in. Maybe we're even to that point to where we're passing out or fainting. With that, we definitely need to be moved to a cool place, either on your own, or if we have to, we can have someone help us. If you have any kind of loose or tightened clothing, then definitely loosen that up. Undo collars if we need to, we need to remove some tight shirts, that type of thing, then we definitely need to let that body be able to expand and be able to cool off. Remember also that dark colors is going to help keep that heat in. So if we're wearing those nice blacks and dark blues and reds, then we probably need to be kind of getting rid of that stuff so that we can cool off and we don't keep that heat. We can again put cool wet rags on the body, or a cool shower. Again, we don't want to drop this body temperature drastically, but we still want to get you cooled off and make you feel a little bit better. If we have to, we could spray down the clothing that you have on with some water. But remember, if that water sits there on that body, then it's going to become hot. And we don't want that, because then that's, again, going to add to your problems. So if you wet somebody down, we definitely want to stand there and fan them, or put a fan on them, some way to circulate air over top of them so that we can get them cooled off and we keep that cool air circulating over that water. At this point in time, since we may be nauseous and we may be vomiting, definitely don't want to give them too much to drink, but we can let them try to sip water to see if we can get it into their system. If there is vomiting, if they're getting worse, if the symptoms is lasting longer than that hour, you definitely need to get the medical professionals. Dialing 911 or getting them to an urgent care center or an emergency room somewhere is going to be your best bet for this heat exhaustion. That way they can get fluids into them intravenously. And then finally, which is the worst case scenario at all, and that is when we have a high body temperature, we may actually have a stroke from it. And with that being said, that we need that high body temperature is going to be done a little differently than you taking one in the mouth or on the forehead or underneath the arm. Those temperatures may not be the most accurate, especially since you've been out in the sun. But when we're looking at high body temperature here, we're looking at a high body temperature, I know, bad thought, but it's going to be done rectally. So we know what's inside, that core. What are you actually cooking on the inside of your body? The skin may be hot, maybe red, drier than what it was. It's going to kind of dry off because our body is made of water. So you're going to keep putting water out, but you may just slow down versus that lots of sweating. You'll be slowed down because you're just running out of fluids and you're becoming dehydrated on top of it. Fast pulses, headaches, dizziness, nausea, confusion, losing consciousness. Kind of sounds like the same thing we just talked about with heat exhaustion, except that body temperature is way up there when it's on the inside of the body. Your treatment for this is definitely, there is no ifs, ands, or buts. This is definitely time to call 911. We got to do this immediately. You can move the person to a cool area while you're waiting on the emergency personnel to get to you. We can help cooling them off, cool cloths, maybe some ice packs. If we're using these cloths and we're using these ice packs, we want to put them in appropriate locations, which would be places like behind the neck, in your armpits, and even on the groin areas, so that we can get that body cooled off kind of centrally located, better than just throwing them across your forehead. And definitely do not give these patients anything to drink at this point in time. With that being said, that is just a kind of brief little highlight refresher for us going into the summer months and this heat months. If you do have more questions, please contact us at info@rescuerintraining.com or 317-956-3666. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. We're on all of those social medias. This is Robbie Williams. I want to say thank you for following us and have a blessed night.